worried some in the financial market that Mexico might veer from its market economy reforms. Some U.S. officials voiced concern about the impact of Mr. Colosio's death on U.S. Mexican relations and the North American Free Trade Agreement. President Clinton has promised his support to Mexico. It's not clear when a new candidate will be chosen. After the remarks of President Salinas, we'll bring you comments from several members of the U.S. House of Representatives who commented on the death of the Mexican presidential candidate.
Compatriotas,
Fellow Mexicans,
los mexicanos todos hemos perdido
today we
hoy
Mexicans
a un hombre que
have
se
all
había
lost a
fijado como
man
tarea
who had
fundamental
endeavored
contribuir
to contribute
pacíficamente
peacefully
a la grandeza de
to
la
the
patria.
greatness of his country.
Víctima de un cobarde ataque,
Victim
hoy ha fallecido
of a cowardly
Luis
attack,
Donaldo Colosio.
Luis
Este es un
Donaldo
hecho que me
Colosio
indigna
is today
profundamente.
dead.
Es un hecho que nos agravia.
This event has
Es
shocked
una
and angered
ofensa
all
contra
Mexicans.
todos los mexicanos
It has deeply offended
y
us.
una afrenta
It is an offense
a las
against all
instituciones que a
Mexicans
lo
and
largo
an
de
affront to the
historia
institutions
hemos
that
construido.
we as a people have built throughout
Ha
our history.
lastimado las más profundas
This event
convicciones
has
del pueblo de
shaken
México,
the deepest convictions of
que
the
ha sido
Mexican
siempre
people,
partidario del camino de la concordia,
who have always been on the
de
side
la
of
ley,
harmony, of
de la
law,
paz,
and of peace.
que siempre ha rechazado la
Our
violencia
people have always
como
rejected
vía para la
violence as a
solución de
solution to
nuestros problemas.
problems.
No hay razón política
In
o
Mexico, there
moral
is no political
que en México
or moral
justifique la
justification
violencia.
for violence.
Es una afrenta porque había
It
un
is an
clima de
affront
diálogo,
because the
de
climate
entendimiento
was
y
a climate of
concertación
dialogue, of
entre las fuerzas
understanding,
políticas,
and of cooperation among
de
all the
conducir
political
la diversidad
forces.
de propuestas
There was a
por la
willingness
vía
to
del
settle our
derecho y
differences
la reforma legal.
through the law
Es una afrenta a
and
los
through legal
juristas,
reform, to
a
reconcile
los
our different
sonorenses.
proposals in that
Estoy
manner.
seguro
It
también
is an affront
a todos
against
los
all the
mexicanos.
members of the pre-party and
No
also
aceptamos
against all
que
Mexicans.
enemigos de México
We cannot accept that
pretendan
enemies of
torcer
Mexico
el camino de la ley
would attempt to thwart
y el de la
our
concordia.
law and order.
La pérdida de Luis Donaldo
The
Colosio
loss of Luis Donaldo
es el
Colosio
llamado más profundo
is
para que
perhaps
los
the
mexicanos
strongest call
nos
to unity
mantengamos unidos,
for Mexicans.
para avivar la conciencia de que somos un
It should
pueblo
make
de
us
gran
acknowledge that we
fortaleza moral,
are a people of great
que
moral
frente a
strength,
las
and
adversidades
that when faced with adversity,
sabemos hacer acopio
we can
de
summon
nuestros
our
valores
values
y
and
de la
summon
energía para
our energy
fortalecer
to
la firmeza de
reaffirm
nuestras
and
instituciones.
strengthen our institutions.
Como presidente de la República,
As President of this
estoy
Republic,
decidido a actuar
I
con
stand ready to act with resolve.
vigilaré
I
que la
will
ley se
ensure
aplique con todo
that the
rigor,
law is enforced to the
que este
fullest,
crimen
and
sea
that this
plenamente
crime
esclarecido.
will not remain unpunished.
Nadie está por encima
No
de la ley.
one is above the law.
Los mexicanos debemos estar
We
seguros
Mexicans must
que se acatarán
guarantee
en todo momento
that at all
la
times
Constitución y
our
las leyes.
Constitution and our laws are abided
Convoco a la
by.
concordia. He recibido de dirigentes políticos y partidistas
I make a call to
la
harmony.
convicción y el compromiso
The political leaders and party leaders on all sides have pledged to act responsibly on the basis of new
mantendremos
circumstances.
vigente nuestro
Our
régimen de
system of
libertad
freedoms
y el orden
and
constitucional.
constitutional order will remain in force.
Como mexicano,
As a
como
Mexican
amigo de Luis Donaldo
and as a friend
Colosio,
of Luis Donaldo Colosio,
tengo todo el afecto para brindarlo
I express my deepest
a su esposa
feelings
Diana Laura,
to his family,
su
to
hijo
his
Luis Donaldo,
wife, Diana Laura, to
Mariana.
his son, Luis Donaldo, and to his
Su
daughter,
dolor
Mariana.
no me es ajeno.
I share in their
Su
grief,
pérdida estará
and I assure
rodeada
them that they can
siempre
count on my
de mi más
friendship
cercana
today
amistad.
and always as they try to come to terms
Convoco a
with their
todos mis
loss.
compatriotas
I call upon all my fellow citizens to counter their indignation and anger with strength and calm. I call upon them to reaffirm our shared conviction that we can resolve our problems within the framework of our institutions and
Unfortunately, yesterday also saw a great tragedy in our sister Republic of Mexico. And I want to begin this morning by expressing on behalf of this House our sympathy and sorrow to the President and Congress of Mexico and to the Mexican people at the assassination yesterday of Luis Donaldo Colosio, the presidential candidate of the Institutional Revolutionary Party of Mexico. This country is bound by increasingly close ties with our neighbor state, ties that will only grow stronger in the future, and I am sure all of the members join me in deploring the senseless act and reaffirming our support and the support of this country for our neighbors in Mexico and for Mexican democracy. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, Mexican presidential candidate Luis Donaldo Colosio was my friend for over 20 years. We worked together on many projects of mutual interest to our two nations. I followed with great interest his trajectory in Mexican politics and in the service of his country over the years. I was able to measure the man. His death is a terrible loss to his family, to his friends and supporters, to the government of Mexico, and it is a loss for the people of Mexico. His death is, in fact, a loss for all of us, for I feel this young man of 44 years of age was destined to be a world leader of great import. It is indeed sad that in this day and age, tragedies like this happen. I hope that somehow we, the American people and the people of Mexico, might learn and grow closer from this tragic incident. There are some who will say this assassination shows how chaotic the political situation is in Mexico. Do we forget Lincoln, the Kennedy brothers, and Dr. King? What we must learn is that the political agenda of a small minority in both our countries is not good government and public service, but rather personal ambitions and hatred. Passion and extremism of this nature must somehow be tempered or altogether withdrawn from the political arena. I do hope we learn. I join our distinguished speaker and extend my most sincere and heartfelt condolences to the family and friends of Luis Donaldo and to the people of Mexico. We share in their loss.
Mr. Speaker, last night a great Mexican leader, presidential candidate Luis Donaldo Colosio, was assassinated by a coward. Even though violence has not been a part of Mexican politics in the past, this incident shows that all of us in public life are vulnerable. Luis Donaldo Colosio worked with many of us on NAFTA, and we knew him to be a good, decent man with a great vision for Mexico's future and a grassroots appreciation for those left behind in Mexican society. He would have been a great Mexican president. In fact, I predict that he would have fully democratized Mexico's political process, continued their economic and social reforms, and been a champion of Mexico's impoverished classes. Mr. Speaker, all Americans, Democrats and Republicans, the Congress and the President should support our neighbors in Mexico as they adjust to this tragedy and deal with this political crisis.
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, extend and revise my remarks.
Gentleman may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, today the House of Representatives mourns the untimely death of Secretary Luis Donaldo Colosio. We want to convey our sympathies to his family, to the people of Mexico in their hour of loss. Mr. Speaker, in similar times of loss, when our nation has gone through this turmoil and tragic instance, the Mexican people have stood by us in solidarity. Today, we do the same. Our President, our Speaker, and my colleagues here assembled convey our sorrow to the people of Mexico in this tragic hour. Mr. Speaker, I know that they are strong, they are resilient, and in this time, they will prevail.
Speaker, I stand here today to express my sorrow and anguish at the tragic assassination last evening of the leading presidential candidate in Mexico, Luis Donaldo Colosio. Gunned down by assassins in the border city of Tijuana, Donaldo Colosio was doing what those of us in politics do every day, meeting with voters and citizens of his country, listening to them, telling them of his own hopes and dreams. I knew Donaldo Colosio. In fact, you could say he was something of a hometown boy, growing up in Magdalena, Sonora, just a few miles south of my district and the border with Arizona. He studied at the University of Arizona. He and his family frequently traveled to Tucson on business and pleasure. I spent a long evening a couple of years ago with Mr. Colosio, then chairman of his political party, at the residence of Mexico's ambassador, talking about the changes in Mexico's political system. He was brimming then with enthusiasm and optimism for Mexico's political future, as he was yesterday when he died. Today, we mourn the tragic and untimely fall of this rising star in Mexico. We also know that the growing political maturity of Mexico will sustain them in this hour of their trial. Of that, we can have no doubt.